So I'm going to talk to you about deeper learning. And before I start, let me say that the term deeper learning has lots of different meanings. What I am going to talk about is just a language education framework we created, and we gave it the name deeper learning. The inspiration came from a Harvard professor at a conference who said our students need deeper learning, and he meant like deeper learning, going deeper. So we like the concept of giving this name to our language education framework, but it's not what you will find in the US as deep learning or as deeper learning. So let me start. It all started with a book and a play called 451 Degrees Fahrenheit. This book or play, if you see it on theaters, is about a dystopian world where books are not allowed. And in fact, firefighters are, when they find books, they burn them. And this is the role. So, that was the initial inspiration. And think about this world where reading is a crime. So also, I want to talk to you a little bit about the picture in my context in Greece and how language education works. So we have what we call language teaching operations schools that teach English after the morning school. And there are about 6,000 around Greece. And we have 30 recognized B2 certificates, exams, and they're recognized by the state. So the number is huge, 30. I don't know why we need 34. And the whole methodology in language schools is teaching the test. So everybody does practice tests and test after test after test. And the culture is the 100% success. We need to pass the test and show that our school is extremely successful. Everybody passed. So sometimes schools and teachers use a course book, but unfortunately, they definitely use a lot of practice test books. And, the more tests we do, the happier we are. Teachers end up being statisticians, calculating scores, adding up, dividing. And it's really a race for the bottom in the sense that teachers try to pick the easiest test so that they can keep this 100% success culture for their school. So some other observations that we had in our school is this intermediate plateau idea of from second language acquisition. When students reach B2 level, they have unpredictable language development paces. So some get stuck at B2, some move very, very quickly to C1, but others go back to B1. So there's this unpredictable language development pace, and usually most students stick to B2. And the reason for this is that they don't need anything more than B2. I mean, why would a learner need more than B2? They can do everything they want in life with a B2. They can communicate, write an email, watch a series. So the other thing is, because learners at B2 level are very young in Greece, they're teenagers, young teenagers, they don't really understand the concepts behind the words. So they learn word lists perfectly well. And they learn the definitions, they learn a sentence, but they don't even know the concept in their first language. They don't have the notions. And all this leads to lack of engagement and motivation. So what we saw is that learners are reduced to test robots, taking tests, the one after the other. And the teachers are reduced to teaching robots, and even worse, they are reduced to testing robots. So if you look a little bit at how languages are learned, historically, through automation, through doing, through thinking. Claire Cramsch from Berkeley University, my professor for my PhD, one of my professors, put forward this idea, learning through thinking. So what we need to be doing is helping learners to develop their language ability through experiencing, exploring, understanding, and co-creating the world through the target language, through the new code. And what we need to be doing instead of endless practice tests is help our learners handle meaning in various new ways. So very, very, very practically, we want learners who are who they are and who they want to be in English, in the target language. Learners who are creative and not just reproductive, learners who have their own voice and they do not just, imitate the teacher's voice or the coursebook's voice or the test voice. We want learners who are fully involved with their whole personalities in the new language. So this is our vision, to be in the world in English or Englishes, or the target language if you don't teach English. And this is the main idea behind deeper learning, and I will explain what it is. So what we decided to do for deeper learning is to stop using course books or any ELT materials. We merged level C1 and C2, and we do not teach the language. We teach content. So it's very similar to CLIL if you want, but our main tool is not like in CLIL to learn facts about history, geography, astronomy. It's philosophical inquiry. So the tool to learn English is to ask questions that have no answers, the non-Googleable ones. And the lessons, of course, have to be multimodal. So, you need to include videos, audios, kinesthetic activities, dramatization, texts, transliteration as well, from the book to the screen, to the bigger screen. And basically, deeper learning is encouraging students to ask questions and explore all possible answers. Because deeper learning is based on critical pedagogy, the idea behind it is that we need to emancipate learners to help them become critical, creative, independent thinkers, but also to emancipate teachers to have control over their job, because very often we teachers feel that our job is dictated by a book, a course book, or even worse, a test. And this is a very negative washback effect. So it's also about encouraging students to explore their own language in the new language. So who am I in this new language? So relevant frameworks to deeper learning are, of course, CLIL. I already mentioned it. It's based on critical pedagogy and also the bizarreness theory. So deeper learning in reality answers a need. And, this comes from a totally different field, from physics, from science. But for us to learn, we need to feel the need to answer a question that is interesting. So what is it again? Just to give you an idea, think of a topic that you're really interested in. It might be art, it might be religion, it might be theater, it might be relationships, it might be love, it might be artificial intelligence. So each teacher thinks of a topic they're really interested in. Then the next thing you do is you write 3 questions about it, but these have to be the non-Googleable ones. I mean, even ChatGPT cannot answer the question, what is love? And then we choose the least Googleable one. And the teacher looks for possible resources to explore this question. For example, videos, poems, works of art, statues, TED Talks, articles, fiction books. And then the journey starts. And this is how the syllabus is constructed, by collecting a pool of materials that will help us answer this question, but there is no book. And also, there is no prescribed syllabus. The syllabus is tentative. We co-construct it with our learners. So the basic principles of deeper learning are that it is a very democratic framework where students' voice is central, important. It's not just heard, it's what drives the lesson. And we don't give students a voice. Students have a voice already. The thing is, it has to be voiced. There's no censorship. All ideas are welcome in a deeper learning classroom, and nothing is taken for granted. So first we unlearn, and then we relearn, or we might not even relearn, we might just explore. And it's not just a student-centered framework, it's student-led. So the students will guide you through the next question, which will guide you through what kind of materials we will need to answer it. The role of the teacher in deeper learning is not that of a teacherish, bossy teacher. We are fellow travelers and fellow explorers with our learners, and we don't have the answers. We just have some ideas about resources that can possibly help us explore the big question. We encourage the use of technology, and I'll go back to my initial slide talking about this dystopian world where books are burned, to tell you that teenagers today do not read actual books. I mean, if you look at all research and surveys and data, we live in the world of visual literacy. The image has become huge and the text gets shorter and shorter. So, and look at how teenagers communicate with each other. It's all Instagram and TikTok and, you know, all these media where the text is minimal, which is good if it's done critically, but also our vision in deeper learning is encouraging students to revisit the long text, to find the magic of a novel, of an article, of a critical essay, and have the patience to read it, analyze it, synthesize facts, not because they have to, because there is a test at the end that they have to take and pass, but because they're interested in finding the answers. So practically, the first step is what I told you. The teacher finds a topic, asks the questions, sets up areas of exploration, and then we choose a title. Each teacher chooses a title, and we prepare our annual syllabus, which is tentative, as I said. We create a schedule, so we offer slots. And each slot is a topic or a big question, and each slot is 1.5 hours a week. And in our school, we offer at this point 18 slots, so students can choose the topics they like. We share the schedule with our students, and our students can choose up to 3 deeper learning slots. And then the journey starts. And throughout the year, our students will attend their deeper learning sessions. They will explore the 3 different questions they have chosen throughout the year. And that's, you know, the journey. Now, what is the destination? What happens at the end of the year when the deeper learning cycle is completed? Students have to submit a research paper, a mini research paper. So see here the life skills they're learning. They're teenagers. They're still at junior high school or high school. And they have to write an academic paper, which is something they don't have to do in their morning school system. They have no idea what an academic paper is. Then we also organize a youth conference where students present, they submit proposals, they get acceptance, they present 5-minute talks on a topic related to the research paper. And we also organize a youth creativity day where students present now a creative project based on the research. So it can be a poem, an installation, a dance performance, a musical performance. So because what we want to show them is that each question has a critical aspect that you will present in an academic talk at the youth conference, but it also has a creative aspect that you will explore and present on our Youth Creativity Day. And how is assessment done in this framework? We have a portfolio, a reflective journal, and a lot of self-assessment. But there's also a summative assessment component where we give students, skills tests or, a vocabulary quiz. And their research paper is assessed for each part. So the abstract, the data collection, the research questions, the conclusion, the bibliography, all these different components of the research paper will be assessed. And some topics we have offered, and there are many more: artificial intelligence, visual arts, poetry, fairy tales, human rights, identity, who am I, understanding otherness, power relations, utopias and dystopias, questions about life. This is biology and psychology together. What is love? Bodies, the supernatural. So this is an example of a syllabus of a deeper learning slot of the topic, what is love? So this is the description. This is something the students will get. And it's roughly what we will be working on throughout the year. But again, as I said, this can change. But they get an idea of what the teacher has in mind. And the learning outcomes, that are more language oriented, breaking down into lexis and grammar and skills, reading, oral skills, and so on. So, for example, one of the reading skills that we have as a learning outcome is read sophisticated text and watch related visuals on the same topic. Speaking and listening, advise on or talk about complex or sensitive issues. As I said, there is no censorship, so there's a lot of discussion on sensitive issues. There are no taboo topics. And then we have the schedule per week and the materials we suggest. So you can see the word love. What does it come from? Where does it come from? What does it mean? The science of love, like what do we know about love through neuroscience, through biology, the different kinds of love. And you see there, movies and texts and different kinds of texts. So we have Antigone by Sophocles in Greek, which is an ancient Greek tragedy. But we also have an episode from Black Mirror, an AI series, and a film, Amour or Breaking the Waves. And these are things we do in class, analyze them, give vocabulary, give written tasks, give assign oral presentations to students, and more. I mean, these are parts of the syllabus. We read Plato, we listen to podcasts, and we just explore what love is. I mean, there's no answer to that. Look at section 5, does love exist? We watch The Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, Gandhi, a different kind of love, humanistic love. And we visit philosophical sites, we write blog entries, we summaries, we do this from viewing to representing, create an image-based project, creative writing. So the idea is that there are a million possible paths to knowledge. There is not just a right and wrong answer, like the culture of an exam, of a test. And there are infinite interpretations of the truth. And when we learn a language, when we learn English, it's because we find a new tool to interpret the truth. So all this, of course, is uncharted waters, right? So it's new. We've been doing it for 5 years now, but it still feels new because every time it's different. The idea is that we want our learners to think hard. And some questions we have been exploring in our deeper learning classes, of course, who am I? There is no answer to that. But we spent the whole year, and the topic was each individual in this classroom exploring themselves. Other questions, is the body necessary for consciousness? Another question that came from a student, If your brain is copied and duplicated exactly as it is, do you think that the robot, which now has your brain, also has your feelings? I mean, it took us a lot of time to explore this question, but of course, there's no answer. Can robots feel pain? Do animals feel the same type of pain as humans? And you might say yes, but then what about the pain of a broken heart? Can they feel that? Another philosophical question, is the trolley problem a meaningful thought experiment? And if so, how should we program self-driving cars? It took us 2.5 months exploring this question. How do social media shape who we are? We don't just have identities, we also have identities. How are identities and identities similar, and how are they different? Is the theory of evolution merely a hypothesis? And if not, why do we call it a theory? It took us a year to explore this question, a school year. How can I understand your otherness? Other teachers explored this question. Why do we dream? There was a whole, an annual deeper learning slot called Dreams. And the main big question was, why do we dream? Do we dream in words or in images? On the topic of love, is falling in love with a robot or a chatbot a possible gender expression or an expression of sexuality? Are we already cyborgs? Do our smartphones count as extensions of our hands? Are our smartphones parts of our bodies? Can we live without them? Do we have free will? I mean, we immediately say yes, but why do we even ask such a question? How accurate is our memory? In the deeper learning slot, questions about life, where they study psychology and biology through philosophical inquiry, one of the questions raised was this: how accurate is memory? And they did lots of experiments, and they watched eyewitness statements, and it's crazy how our memories are not accurate. We did fairy tales. Why did Cinderella have to go back home before midnight? This came from one of the students. Was the prince really a foot fetishist? What does happily ever after mean? I mean, why do all fairy tales end with a marriage and a happily ever after? What happens after the marriage? What is love? This is an example of an assessment, a test. I'm not going to show you all the parts, just some of them. At the beginning, students had to go to the webpage where the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was, and they had to choose 2 articles they thought they were important, and they had to explain in detail what the articles mean and why they're important to them. And then they had to write their opinion on the most fundamental human right and explain in detail. And then we gave them 2 photos from refugee camps in Greece at the island of Lesbos. And they had to find what basic human rights were violated there. It's a long list. But the surprising thing was that they had no idea that we had these refugee camps in Greece. So when we showed them the pictures, they would not believe that these pictures are in Greece. And they were shocked, which was great, because this is what we wanted. We wanted them to be shocked and to be politically aware of what happens in our country. And they had to analyze it critically. And then, they read an article. This is part of the exam again. Then they read an article. They had to answer reading comprehension questions about the article, but also give their own opinions about the article. And then they had to create a video essay. So we use Flipgrid, which is a new genre. And it's a genre that is very relevant to our students because they do everything through videos. But to create a video essay, you need to write it, to say it out loud, to make corrections, to say it out loud again, to make more corrections. So you see this process writing / speaking, and how it takes place and how it promotes both skills. So in deeper learning, it's not just that we integrate the 4 skills like in a traditional, let's say, course book. We integrate everything. It's a framework, language education framework that integrates multimodality, so all possible modes and media, transliteracy, all skills, reading, writing, speaking, listening in all systems, grammar, vocabulary, discourse, pronunciation, 21st century skills, content learning, voice and choice, because the students make choices about what's to be explored next. But also, it's a framework that helps the teacher to BYLP. This is another acronym. I have created it. I love acronyms. And it stands for Burn Your Lesson Plan. I mean, lesson plans are great, and we really need them at the beginning of our teaching careers to learn how to set up a lesson and design every step. But at the same time, they're very restricting and very inflexible. And in a deeper learning framework, we need to get rid of them because we need to factor in the unpredictable wishes of the students. So not just what I mentioned before, by integrated everything, I mean, we integrate critical thinking, creativity, and above all, thinking, thought. We need time to think, to take a step back, to be silent and get lost in our thoughts. This is philosophical inquiry. It's let me think and have no answer. Let me ask more questions. So it's all about connections in our brains, connections with each other, connections with the teacher, but also connections with the world, understanding the world inside of us in English and understanding the world out there in English. So our students in deeper learning learn more than forming sentences. They learn how to form ideas. And these are pictures from some of our youth conferences that we have organized. They learn to expand their thinking in English or Englishes, but also to expand their thinking in general. And these are pictures from the Youth Creativity Day, creative projects they created. So the third youth conference was about, this was a title, Life Doesn't Frighten Me. It comes from a poem by Maya Angelou. That was the next one, Identities and Labels. Last year, Things That Never Were. And this year, on April 29th, the youth conference we are organizing has the topic, We Are Stories. And our students will present their stories, other people's stories, what a story is. And these are snapshots from our youth conferences. So you see young teenagers being on stage, speaking in English, sharing their truths, sharing their journeys, and being who they are, and they just do it in English. These are more snapshots from our youth conferences. And they really enjoy it. See, so the final outcome is not just pass the test and grade. It's, I am here to talk about my own journey in the English language. We also published an anthology with their poems coming from Deeper Learning Creative Writing slot. And, what is the learning outcome of all this? To think in English, to understand the world inside and outside in English, to understand the world inside and outside. And then, of course, the question is, and what about the test? I mean, what can these students do when they finish with this journey? Because this is all romantic and beautiful, but do they really learn English? Well, we have collected data from the last 5 years from C2 high stakes exams. In Greece, we mainly take Cambridge University exams and Michigan University exams. And the data we collected come from these two examples. What we notice is that the pass rate was significantly higher since we started using deeper learning, especially in reading, writing, and speaking scores. There was no significant difference with listening scores, but I mean, that's okay. And at this point in Greece, 115 schools, Greece and Cyprus, have adopted deeper learning as a language education framework. So they are doing what I just described to you. More than 6,000 deeper learning students at this point in Greece, more than 500 deeper learning teachers. We have created 2 deeper learning teacher training courses, one at level 5, one at level 7. We hold an annual deeper learning teacher conference. We call it the Show and Tell Day, where teachers present an idea that worked in their deeper learning class. And we have organized 4 deeper learning youth conferences and youth creativity days. This year, we're organizing our 5th. And we also created a research and praxis team at our school. And, you know, our goal is to create a dialogue on how language education can change or should change, to revisit and reevaluate the role of ELT materials, course books, test books, and how they really silence teachers and their voice. We want to promote the science of mathematics instead of teaching. Let's focus on the learner experience, not how we teach, but how our learners learn. Our vision is to free stakeholders from prescribed learning outcomes, change the learning outcomes. We want to revisit the role of the teacher and give teachers agency and voice and freedom and burn your lesson plan. And is this all out of the box? In fact, it's ancient. This is the Platonic Academy in ancient Athens. You know, just walking around, talking about philosophy and understanding the world through it. So this is why we believe that deeper learning focuses on what really matters. And we just say that we believe we can and will and have already started hacking the system.
Una mattina mi sono alzato, vela ciao, vela ciao, vela ciao, ciao, ciao. Una mattina mi sono alzato e ho trovato l'invasor, partigiano, portami via. Oh vela ciao, vela ciao, vela ciao, ciao, ciao. Partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morire.
Okay, just, you know, to end all this, I can take your questions now. You can also email me, myself or Angel Evangelidis. He's the co-creator of Deeper Learning. So if there are any questions in the chat, let me see them.